we're always going to be separate from one side of our family for our whole life. And that's huge. I don't think we really realized that until we got married.
This week on Culture Couch, we're going to be talking about the realities of dating someone from a different culture. And at the end of this video, we're going to talk about whether we recommend you dating someone from a different culture. Welcome back to the show, Grace.
Thanks.
I didn't mean to hold your hand behind this, but I did. Today we're talking about, are Australian-American couples compatible? What was your first opinion of my culture before meeting me and after meeting me? So for some context, I'm from America, Grace is from Australia.
Yeah. Well, I would consider your culture as the South. I had experienced it once before I met you. I had stayed in North Carolina on the coast. My impression of Southern culture then was what you would expect, very hospitable. Everyone was very nice. And they have like a very specific type of barbecue out there too, and it was just so good. And having like Brunswick stew and hush puppies for the first time, that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed all that. I would say that my impressions of Southern culture after I met you changed from my lens at the time. I felt like you were a little bit uptight because I feel as though in the South there's very clear defined lines of like what's
right and wrong,
acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I feel like those lines are different here. I think it's hard when you're coming from that culture, you've grown up with an understanding of what you believe is right and wrong in your culture, and then you go to another country.
It's stricter, more strict.
Yeah, and I think it's hard when on the surface our countries and our cultures do seem so similar.
Right.
Because you're not expecting those differences to happen. At the time, you had no context for what Australian culture was except for what I was telling you.
In the beginning I was dating, I just fully was, part of this is like the time of my life, like 22 years old, I feel like. It's a time where you kind of think you're right about a lot of things. At least I did. So much of what Grace said, I'd just say, that's not how it is for me. Or I would say or think, is that true?
Yeah.
That may be how it is, but that's just not right.
Yes, that definitely
that was like a thing that I thought a lot was, that's not right.
That definitely came up.
And I think I was underexposed to other cultures.
It is hard when you're in a situation where, like, if you were saying that something wasn't right, like, in any circumstance in life, if you're, like, getting in trouble, if you make an excuse for yourself, the things that I was saying could so easily seem like they were excuses, even though they were the truth.
The way that people dress, the way that girls interact with guys.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the last episode. I just felt like Grace was really close with a lot of guys. I had never seen a good example of that.
Yeah.
Or it didn't end up meaning something kind of negative.
Yeah.
But yeah, now looking at Australian culture, it's like...
It makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, it makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my answer would be pretty similar. The first opinions I formed of Australia were probably from a friend that I knew in high school.
And Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin, oh yeah, Steve Irwin was my first, which is so funny. Steve Irwin, I think, usually like famous actors or actresses.
Yeah.
I had very little opinion or understanding. In my head, Australia was the outback. It was just like, it was all the outback. And my first opinion of Australia was very just like minimal. There was not much to base it off of. So when I met you, it was just fully like taking away any kind of preconceived notion I had about Australia and then building on top of that culture because I had no idea what the culture was like. I think we started dating, and I don't know if this is true, but maybe this is just because we've gotten married and I live in Australia and now I'm exposed to Australian culture. But I get a sense that Australian culture is having a little bit more of a day. I just feel like recently there's been a lot of media around Australians becoming famous.
I think that could be partly because you live here.
Yeah, you think?
Because when I live in America, I like never hear about that stuff. But when I'm here, I always hear about Americans coming here.
Maybe it's just one of those things of like when you buy a car, all of a sudden you realize there's like
millions on the road.
You never saw that car before on the road. You go buy that car, and now there's like a billion of that car on the road, and you just notice them. I think it is a bit of that, maybe.
Yeah. What was the biggest misconception about me, culturally speaking?
This is so stupid because now I know you so well. I thought you were just oblivious maybe to guys specifically. My biggest misconception of you was that you maybe were too comfortable with guys. I thought your moral scale was way out of whack.
Yeah.
Now being in the culture, being in Australia, I totally understand why it is that way. And it's just funny and out of context.
Oh,
a person culturally out of context
doesn't make sense really. If you haven't been exposed to the culture, like you've never been to Australia.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for every country. If you took someone out of their home culture and put them in a different culture, there's so many things that you are not going to understand or are going to be taken the wrong way about that person, because
Yeah.
so many little things build them up to be the person they are culturally. And one tiny building block in their home country culturally gets taken out and put into a different context, and it can completely unravel their morality. Now, it won't once you get to know them, but from the outside, looking at them through an American lens or an Australian lens, they're not going to fit that filter.
Yeah.
And so what character looks like country to country is, you know, the character is the same, but this telltale signs of who has character and who doesn't, who's a good person, who's not, I think can look different.
Yeah. I remember having disagreements when we were dating and thinking, if only I could take him to Australia.
Yeah.
Or this is all going to make sense.
You were
and it was honestly really frustrating at times, because I was like, I could see from your perspective how it would be like, what? Like, you're just saying that. You're just saying that's the culture because I'm telling you this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like one day it's gonna make sense. Like, I've waited like 4 years nearly or 3 years from when we moved here to have those moments of like, I get it now. And it's been really nice.
Yeah, you're extremely patient, because my transition into moving into Australia and the smoothness culturally, you know, I don't think I've really had culture shock to the point where I feel from a cultural standpoint that I can't be here. I never felt there was a cultural reason for me to leave.
That's really good.
Whereas I know that there's people that feel that way about America and Australia.
Yeah.
I think you gradually introduced me.
Most of my family came over for a few months before we moved.
That was good too.
And I think spending time with my brother and my sister and my parents like helped.
It gave you a lot of credibility. You telling me all about your culture, me never having any experience with it, then your family coming over, giving you a bit of credibility, and then having another level of understanding of what it's like, because I'm not just seeing it in you, I'm seeing it in other people.
Yeah.
And then to move here was like the final step.
Biggest misconception, maybe that I saw you as being like legalistic.
So it's just like the opposite of what mine was.
Pretty much. I just thought that you maybe paid more attention to like the rules you had in your head rather than like what was actually going on.
I seem to remember you saying that you felt that I was kind of imagining you as someone, thinking that I was looking for the Southern grace. Like, I wanted you, but I only wanted you if you were Southern valued.
There was like a disconnect there of me being like, no, I'm not, like, this is not how I am. And you saying, well, this is how it is when you do that.
Yeah. And those were both true.
They are both, yeah.
There was like perceived reality versus expected reality versus reality.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. There's the grace I perceived, there's the grace that was real, and then there was the grace that I expected. In any relationship, there's an expected person, there's a perceived person, and there's a real person. Because perception isn't always reality.
Right.
Especially in the beginning of dating. You don't know anything about the person, so everything they do is painting the picture. So if you've hung out with them 2 times, each time is 50% of the person to you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But when you're married and when you've spent a long time with each other, every time you hang out isn't going to change your opinion about each other so much.
Dang, that's crazy. I've never thought about that before.
You know, it's the same way that when you're 5, your next birthday is such a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you're 50,
Yeah,
it's just 1/50th of your life.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's a really good comparison because when you're 60, 70, 80, and even now, like in my 20s, I feel this already. But I can't even imagine how exponential this is going to be in later in my life. But each year just feels like so fast.
Yeah.
Because it's only such a small portion of your life.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're young, it's such a big portion. I think it's the same way when you're dating. Each date in the beginning is such high pressure, but it just every day it gets less and less pressure. And I think the same thing is true about you perceiving someone. Your expectations are going down because your perceptions are going up. And then your perception of the person you're dating and then the expectation of the person you're dating are going to slowly align to become reality, like who they are.
Yeah.
And to throw 2 different cultures in that, I felt and we both felt we were starting so much further apart.
Yeah.
And that cultural gap is just, it increases the stakes in the beginning. So each of those interactions, you know, those perceptions and those expectations become much a bigger deal. And I think that's why you don't see that many people really it's not that common. Instead of marrying someone from where they're from or from the country they're from, they marry someone outside. It's just not as common.
Yeah.
I think it actually is more common now probably because social media and watching YouTube and our exposure to other cultures, it's becoming so normal.
Yeah.
I think we do live in the easiest time. Maybe everyone says that, but because of travel, we live in the easiest time to like date someone from another culture.
Yeah.
How did you decide who would move to whose home country?
We didn't realize it at the time, but we were making that decision during COVID, like March 2020.
Yeah. So Grace and I broke up when we were dating. The first stint of us dating, I was completely opposed
Yes.
to moving to Australia.
You didn't say no, never. Because
Yeah.
I think if it was no, never, that probably would have been a deal breaker for me. I don't know if we talked super in depth about it. Yeah, no, we did. I think we kind of had made the decision at that point in time to finish up school and then stay in California, maybe. Like that was maybe the plan. Then COVID happened and we had a few days to decide whether we were going to come to Sydney for a few weeks or go to North Carolina. Yeah. And we just decided to go to North Carolina because it was a lot more simple.
We have family in both countries, and with those families comes connections, comes opportunities. It just made so much sense to be like open to those. And so now being open to that, it only increases the opportunities. What cultural traditions would you pass down to your kids from your spouse's home country? And what cultural traditions from your home country will you not pass down?
I would just say I feel like Americans are more festive with just different holidays throughout the year. So that's something that I definitely want to pass down. Not that Australians don't get into Christmas and stuff like that, but I feel like America has a lot of opportunities that they go just way beyond what Australians tend to, whether that's 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, all of those things, and a few more throughout the year. I feel like Americans make a really big deal about those. So I want to pass that on.
Would you not pass down from your home country?
Australia's perfect. No.
So basically, Grace wants everything from Australia to be passed down to her kids. I want to pass down the work-life balance from Australia with the drive that Americans have to get things done. Yeah, I want to pass down that work-life balance, I think, from Australia. Just like the easygoing side of being like, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Maybe they start from a position of having a good drive to get things done and ambition, but when they fail, I want them to have the Australian culture of it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I think some Australians, from my perspective, no, most Australians are very laid back with their work, not to say they aren't hard workers. That hard work looks different here. Work to live versus live to work. But I'm not going to pass down to my kids being like hyper political. I'm going to teach my kids to vote, educate themselves to make those decisions. But I don't necessarily think I'm going to teach my kids to be extremely vocal. I think you can do that without having to broadcast what your opinions are. What is the best part about dating someone from your spouse's home country? And is it a good idea to date cross-culturally?
Best part about dating someone from America, just getting to experience their culture in a different way, through a different lens. You're also going to get to see probably parts of America that you wouldn't see if you weren't dating that person. And
you get like a local's perspective.
Yeah, you get a local's perspective. You get to like experience the food, certain parts of American culture that I had never experienced before we dated. In my experience, you're very hardworking, very resourceful. You do have really good character because of the way that you were raised in the culture that you were raised in. Is it a good idea to date someone cross-culturally? I don't think we fully realized the ramifications when we were dating, and I thought I was prepared. I didn't realize this until we got married, but I think the realization that we're always going to be separate from one side of our family for our whole life. Yeah. That's a huge thing. And I think, when you're apart from your family, you think, what if someone gets sick? What if someone gets into a car accident? Like, you think about those things and how far away you are. And that's huge. And I don't think we really realized that until we got married. And especially for me, when I was locked out of Australia for however long, having those thoughts recurring is a really big thing. So I would say, honestly, yes, if you're an adventurous person and you're ready to take on the burden of visas and like hauling kids across the world for the rest of your life, back and forth to see family, then yes, go and do it. But if you don't want to take that burden up, because it is a burden, if you don't want to do that, then please find someone from your own country because it's so much easier.
What's the best part about dating someone from your spouse's home country? It's Australia. I think everyone outside of Australia thinks dating someone or being married to someone or going to Australia is like the coolest thing ever. Australia is so cool. There's a reason why Steve Irwin and why anytime anything Australian hits international market, it just goes crazy. I've always said this. I think Australians have a significant advantage. Like if you're Australian and you have any talent, just go to America, go to another country, and you're gonna have an edge because people love you. Is it a good idea for someone to date cross-culturally? No. You know, when it comes to the point where it's someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with, like, it just doesn't matter, does it?
No, it's, yeah.
Like, when there's no one that's going to stop us
No.
from that. But I think, should you go seeking that out? No. For both of you to live the rest of your life between both your countries, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. You know, in your lifetime, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. More than you would have if you just married someone from where you're from, or dating someone from where you're from. That being said, like, it is the best. There are things that you are unlocking. I love when I see two people from two different cultures, especially like vastly different ones. You know, we have friends like this, and they go from like a very American culture to a very non-American culture.
Yeah.
That speaks a different language. And like, we don't do that, but you know, we don't have that. But I think that's so sick. Like,
it's awesome.
You're taking someone who never would have understood your culture, and you're bringing them in and allowing them to become part of it.
Yeah.
And Australia does that really, really well. No, I wouldn't recommend going and searching for it, but I wouldn't be scared of it.
Yeah, no.
As long as you know you're going to be able to commit to that. I think we're in the sticks. I think we're deep into the sticks on this one.
Deep in the sticks.
If you have made it this far, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Give us a bamboo emoji, stick emoji. There's actually not like a regular stick emoji.
It's like a log, isn't it?
There's a
It's
few.
like
You could do like a leaf. You could do a log. Let us know in the comments if you made it this far. You could drop a trident emoji if you're a real legend.
If you're a real OG.
Yeah, if you're an OG, drop a trident emoji. Trident emoji is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
None of you knew it existed. Don't lie to me. Before I said it, no one knew it existed.
Yeah.
I bet like Apple headquarters was like trying to figure out why so many people were using the trident emoji all of a sudden, after like years of it never being used. After years of it never being used, all of a sudden it's being used, and people are like, "What is going on?"
I will say, my best friend messaged me after that episode and was like, "The trident emoji is sick."
The trident emoji is fire. They popped off when they did that one.
They really did something with that one.
All right, to end us off this week, I want to know your weekly whinge.
My weekly whinge.
I learned about a whinger. It doesn't sound like it. Say it in your accent.
Weekly whinge.
No, what's...
Whinger.
Yeah, whinger.
Yeah, whinger.
I don't know, is it British or is it Australian?
No, I think it's Aussie, but I could be wrong. It actually could be British, actually. But it's just like
But
when you're like, you're being a sook, which is another
what's your weekly...
Aussie.
So if we say like your weekly whinge, that's going to be like...
It's like your weekly like complain, like complaining about something.
So we're just going to give ourselves...
Weekly whinge.
Yeah. We're going to give ourselves a weekly whinge.
I would say my weekly whinge is that my Roomba hasn't been working.
Yeah, it like makes this noise that sounds like a Boeing 747 taking off in your backyard.
Yeah.
My weekly whinge is that I jokingly started to grow a beard, and now I like it. Guys, thanks for watching this video this week. We'll catch you next week. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for stopping by.
Grace, I'm gonna start having to pay you royalties.
I get all your royalties.